So last week, Holly, you had dove into sex education and you had a few myths on there that we had talked about and kind of
Mhm.
debunked. So I wanted to go off of that and talk a bit about other sex myths as well.
I like it.
So I kind of want to frame it as true or false. So hopefully we can have some fun with it. I want to
Okay.
put out like a little bit of a trigger warning. I feel like there are a couple of these that could be triggering for people, like if they've heard this myth as a way to kind of coerce them into sexual activity or anything like that. So just throwing that
Mm.
out there for people to be mindful of that.
Okay. And if you feel triggered, feel free to take care of yourself however you need to do that, right? Might
Yeah,
mean you stop listening, check out a different live stream, take a break,
absolutely.
call a
Yeah,
friend, any of those things.
absolutely. Um, do some grounding techniques and follow up with a therapist for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No shame in that. Okay. Are you ready for our first statement that we're going to figure out if it's true or false?
I'm ready. I'm excited. You're taking the lead tonight, so I'm kind of like along for the ride and here to contribute, hopefully.
Okay. We're going to start out with one that I feel is really common. Okay. So, having too many sexual partners can cause the vagina to loosen.
Yeah. Oh. So you want me to guess if this is fact or fiction? Having
Mm.
too many
If
partners
you
can
have
cause.
any initial thoughts. And if anyone comes into the chat, I want them to participate too if they feel comfortable.
Yeah, we'd love to hear guesses. I'm gonna say a big fiction for this one.
Straight up bullshit.
Uh huh. That sounds like a whole lot of fiction.
Yeah, it's just another way to shame vulva owners into
Hmm.
feeling bad about their sexual experiences.
Yeah, shame them, into the slut shaming,
Hmm.
and in reality, do you have the fact to follow up? Do you want me to add my thoughts or?
Add your thoughts, and then I can fill in anything if I know anything differently. Yeah.
In reality, a vagina is very pliable. It stretches
Yeah.
and moves. When a woman is aroused and preparing for penetration, it will lengthen and widen, which is kind of cool. So it's like it does its own thing. It shapes and molds and moves. I mean, um, yeah, there's no permanent stretching out damage that happens from having multiple sex partners.
No, exactly. The muscles are highly elastic.
Hmm.
My understanding is that the only thing that causes loosening of these muscles is a decrease in estrogen around menopause.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing that I've heard
Hmm.
for any sort of facts behind the vagina's ability to loosen.
So it will loose. So with a decrease in estrogen, it might loosen just naturally.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I haven't heard that. Learning something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Here's the next one. The G spot is an area inside the vagina that is associated with pleasure.
I
I,
feel like
I,
this one's a
I,
trick question.
I know. I was just thinking that. I'm like trying not to overthink it. Like there's no trick questions on
There's
here,
no.
from my understanding.
You're not
Maybe
gonna
there
trip
is a
me
trick
up.
question, but
Oh, okay. That sounds like a fact for the most part.
yeah, absolutely, that's a fact. No, I know it sounded like a trick question, but it wasn't. It's just
Okay.
people still don't fully believe that the G spot exists.
I feel like there's some controversy around the G spot. Tell me what you know about the G
Absolutely.
spot. We should compare notes because
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard a lot and
Yeah.
I've also learned a lot in regards to the G spot. So
Yeah.
tell me
Absolutely.
what you know.
So inside the vagina, essentially, um, females have three holes. There's the urethra, right, where urine comes out. There's the vaginal opening, and then there's the anus. In between the urethra and the vaginal opening, inside the vagina, is a collection of nerves. Um, And it also can feel a little bit different. My understanding is it can feel a little bit more spongy than other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been associated with increased pleasure. There's also some talk that there's a Skene's gland there that is, last time we had talked about homologous. I can see why you were struggling
You
with this
said it
last
better
time.
than me. I still didn't say it that right. Homologous.
So we were talking about that before, which is basically, as Holly was sharing last week, um, male and female anatomy. They have you described it so beautifully, Holly. I wish you would just do it again.
Do you want me to jump in?
When like a fetus is being formed, there are structures that have the same kind of genetic makeup, but one can form into an aspect of female anatomy and another can form into an aspect of male anatomy. Is there anything that you want to add in terms of homologous?
Well, they're like the sister parts
Yes.
of each other, or like twins or whatever, right? So like the most common one is it will either like a penis will either that part, whatever you call it before it becomes a penis, or a clitoris, but that's what it will morph into. That's what it will grow into, either a clitoris or penis. They are the homolog parts to one another, like the twin parts. So every part of your genitals has a homolog in the male part and the female part.
Thank you.
I hope that helps. I don't know. It's
So,
a hard thing to explain.
Going back, the Skene's gland is homologous to the prostate.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And the prostate has also been associated with pleasure. And so there is controversy over whether this G spot exists, but seems to be pretty valid with the collection of nerves and the Skene's gland, potentially for more pleasure coming from that area. And you can find that area if you were to insert fingers into the vaginal opening and go to the anterior wall up.
I like that you're like demonstrating.
You're welcome. That is where you would locate it.
Okay. This is interesting. So I feel like I've heard that, but I've also heard different. I think this is why I thought the question was a trap, because there's people that debate the G spot even existing or what it is. And so the other information that I have read is that all the G spot is a continuation of the clitoris in the internal parts of the body. So that the clitoris head is what is, external on a vulva, and becomes filled with blood, when aroused, and protrudes, and you can feel it and see it, and all of that. But the clitoris is actually goes quite deep into a woman's anatomy, and almost like a wishbone shape. And for some women, they're I want to say the urethra, or like the upper part of the vaginal wall. Sometimes just their genetic makeup, the wishbone parts internally of the clitoris are close to the vaginal wall. So that's why some women can have orgasms through penetration. It's rare, but some can, and that is often because they are actually stimulating the clitoris from internally stimulating the clitoris. And so because that has been a pleasure spot for some women, the whole G spot idea emerged. It was my understanding, but I've also heard what you've talked about, and I don't think that one is right or wrong. I feel like it could be either or.
It could be, absolutely. I know, yeah, I've also heard that in terms of the wishbone with the clitoris. I thought it was two separate things, but so this myth might actually be like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
It
Maybe
could be
not
either.
like an exact true or false.
I think it could be. It could be either way. Even if it was because of the clitoris being stimulated internally, you could still call it a G spot. It's still an area that is providing pleasure.
It's true.
Wow.
Very true. You transitioned beautifully, Holly.
Oh.
Most women cannot have a vaginal orgasm or have not had a vaginal orgasm.
Fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, the numbers range from 4 to 14% of women have had a vaginal orgasm,
Wow.
meaning an orgasm that is not directly related to external stimulation of the clitoris, which is really low, I think.
Yeah, and I think it says something about how normal that is, how normal it
Absolutely.
is to not. I think a lot of women wonder what's wrong with me. Why can't I have an orgasm through intercourse or their partners? I mean, we're kind of sold that's a likely possibility. Right?
Absolutely. And for some reason it's superior in some way.
Like if you're able to, that you're
Yeah, like
superior.
a vaginal orgasm is superior to a clitoral orgasm.
Well, we could totally get into why. Why would that be superior? Gee, I don't know. Could it be because, a man's penis is causing, that orgasm, and so we see that as somehow better? It's seen as better.
Absolutely. I like that viewpoint of it. I had heard that Sigmund Freud, uh, had said that like a clitoral orgasm was like infantile,
Yes,
essentially.
I heard that too, like an immature
Yeah,
version of orgasm, which is funny because there's like far more nerve endings in a clitoris than in a penis. Those orgasms, I don't think a male orgasm probably compares in intensity to what a female orgasm is. But I don't know. I've never been a man. I don't know what that feels like.
very true. But
Took it in a weird direction.
but you got me on this other thought train too. I think it's wild that for so long, we've been talking about the clitoris having like 8,000 nerve endings, and we got that information from studying a cow. They
Wow.
didn't do a study on actual female clitoris until the 2020s, where they found 10,000 nerve endings. I was like, we're taking information from a cow? Nice.
I mean,
Clearly, we
woman,
care about women's
cow,
health.
tomato, tomato, close enough.
Wild. Wild to me.
Oh,
Ugh.
wow.
Okay, let's see here. How are we good with that one? Anything else you wanted to add to this vaginal orgasm versus clitoral orgasm?
No, I just want to say that whether you have the ability to have vaginal orgasm or not, you're normal. Um, the majority of female pleasure happens with clitoral stimulation. That's the majority of orgasms happen that way, and it really should be the primary focus for female
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Absolutely. And like we all find it okay that men can achieve orgasm through stimulating the penis, and the penis is homologous to the clitoris, so why do we feel shame about needing pleasure through that?
Because it would mean we feel shame, because it would mean maybe interrupting male pleasure. And it would also mean that we are expecting that we are pleasured and that we're seen as important and that our needs are
Yeah.
taking a priority. I think and that doesn't just happen in the bedroom.
Right. Absolutely.
I have some really good future topic idea occurred to me while I was driving today of
It's the best time to think
the
about
best
it.
time to come up with ideas. And if I don't write it down quickly, I will forget it. But like keeping sex alive after kids and everything that happens in a relationship and in how that impacts your sex life. I think if there's any parents, listening, that could be a topic maybe for them. And if you're not a parent, if you're thinking about becoming a parent, if you're pregnant, it's on your mind in any way, it's definitely something that changes a lot for a lot of couples.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great. Normalizes it too, that it can be difficult.
Yep. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I took away
Don't be
from
sorry at all.
Our next fact or fiction.
The average duration of penetrative sex, so the moment penetration starts, not including foreplay, is 18 minutes.
That sounds like fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds
Absolutely.
really long. Is it too
But
long?
I think from porn um, and locker room talk, there's a lot of myth that sexual sessions last far longer than they do. The average is 4 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, 18 minutes is a long time. But
And the reason I used 18 minutes is because the average man, they did a study, and men think that 18 minutes is the preferred time frame for sex. So if they're feeling like that's the preferred time frame, they're probably thinking that that is the
that they're failing or they're falling short,
yeah,
that
exactly.
something must be wrong with me, that I can't last 18 minutes or I'm struggling to last 18 minutes or,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, who's preferring that? Men or women?
Men think that it's preferred
Preferred
18
by
minutes.
women or,
Yes.
okay.
My understanding, yeah.
Oh, that's a very specific
I
number.
think it was I think it was average.
They're like, I think it's 18 minutes. No more, no less.
Right. I think it's also important to keep in mind like the average session is 4 to 6 minutes, and it takes vulva owners roughly what 20 to 40 minutes to orgasm. So just reinforcing foreplay and clitoral stimulation is very important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's a big discrepancy, right, in how much time needs to go into clitoral stimulation versus penile stimulation. That they're not, you know, equal comparisons. Often it
Right.
takes a lot. It's a lot more of an investment, and that might be a
Right.
barrier as to why women also are not having, clitoral orgasms, because they know it's takes more time. It's more of an investment.
Absolutely.
They can get in their heads about, oh no, is it taking too long? Oh no.
Right. Which is a huge barrier to orgasm is that lack of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Look at us.
Look at us just nailing the facts or fictions.
You can improve taste of the vulva by drinking or eating pineapple the day of sexual activity.
Wow, this might be the first one that I have no idea.
Have
Uh,
you heard this before?
I've heard a lot about pineapple. Not
Yeah.
this. Pineapple. What is
Really?
up with pineapple? Pineapple's supposed to be good for fertility. Pineapple's supposed to help
Really?
with your libido. Pineapple's just like a wonder fruit. Now it makes
I
your
haven't heard the other two.
your vulva
Interesting.
taste lovely. Which, for anyone listening, vulva is the entirety of the female genitals. That is the proper term, rather than vagina. When we normally use the term vagina, referring to the vulva.
Right.
And like I said last week, that's like calling your whole face your throat. It, the whole
Right.
word is face for the whole thing. So vulva. Um, Interesting. I have no idea. Should I guess?
No, you don't have to
Oh.
guess. I'm not gonna force you to guess.
You must choose.
So I'll be honest. Until recently, I thought that this was true. This
Oh,
this I feel like has been a very common myth. I've seen it on social
really?
media about people drinking pineapple juice the day before and the day of sexual activity, so they
Who
know
has
that
that
they're
much
gonna taste sweeter.
pre-planning? Wow. They're just
Yeah,
like, oh,
and
I'm having
I
sex
thought it was
tomorrow at 2.
legit, and
It's,
it's not.
it's
It's
not.
not legit.
It
No,
doesn't sound like it would be. Like
no.
that's a lot of traveling through your body, and somehow.
Overall, nutrition can affect the taste a bit, but you can't just chug some pineapple juice and think you're going to be sweet, right? Like
Hmm. Huh.
the vagina is an acidic environment, the vulva, and
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be. There's a reason that it's acidic, right? It prevents infection and
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Wow. It also goes to show just how angst women can get about
Yes.
their vulvas, like, you know, worrying about how it tastes, how it smells. There's products for like fixing it, you know,
Yeah,
and it's all normal. And you have a unique fragrance, you have a unique taste,
absolutely.
and maybe like copious amounts of something like in your diet maybe might alter
Yeah,
a bit here or there, but probably not. Sounds like.
not
Wow.
terribly. No.
Wow, have I been living in a cave? I have never heard this. You're like, this is a
That's
common
wild.
myth.
I've heard it a lot and I've seen it a lot on social media.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not on social media enough, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's where I got it. Like, that's where I learned it from.
Yeah,
So
like
that would make
TikTok.
sense.
Is it a
Yeah.
TikTok hack?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, I sound old.
Yeah. Or people joking, like, when I see my child asking for pineapple juice, like, you're not slick, you know?
What, like, what kind of a child?
Like, their teen child,
Oh,
per se. Not a child.
I was like, what is
No.
on TikTok? Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh, if your
Adult child.
teenager's like, I want
Yeah.
pineapple juice from the grocery store. So
Right.
that,
Then you're
wow.
like, you're not slick. But
You know
it
what?
doesn't do anything.
I see this as progress. I
Mm.
see this myth. If the teen girls or vulva owners are willing
Mm.
to be pleasured. I'm not promoting underage sex, by the way. I feel like I should say I'm just talking about, the coming of age. You're hitting the age where you're sexually active and it's developmentally appropriate. But if they're allowing themselves to be pleasured, and if it takes drinking pineapple juice for you to be okay with that, I think that's a heck of a lot more progress than the teenagers of my
Mm.
generation.
Mm. I
That
hear
that
that.
was like horrifying. The thought of anyone's face, you know, being up in your business was like just absolutely horrifying. But I don't think it's the case the other way around.
Yo, absolutely.
I don't
But
know if that makes sense. Does that make
that
sense?
does make sense.
Does it? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Like that there's less shame around cunnilingus, which is the proper term for oral on a vulva.
Yeah. I think I see there maybe being some progress with like the open mindedness of the willingness to try, the willingness
Yeah.
to, not that I think we should lie and say drink some pineapple juice, it'll all be fine. But
Right.
the fact that they're even thinking in those ways,
Right.
I
Right.
don't know.
And I'm glad you mentioned like it's going to have a fragrance, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
is a moist acidic environment, right? You don't like the word moist. I saw it.
it's
Yeah.
it is
And
moist.
so it's going to. I think the big thing is like if there's changes, right? If there's
Mm-hmm.
changes to the fragrance, then maybe there might be something to be, cautious of and maybe get checked out to make sure that you're not struggling with some sort of infection, like a yeast infection or
That's true.
bacterial
Sometimes yeah.
vaginosis or something.
Yeah, that can sometimes a change in scent is could mean that there's an infection.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if there's a change, then definitely,
Mm-hmm.
just be mindful of that. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, like if there's a change and you've been exercising, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
really common for things to change
Mm-hmm.
with that, with more sweat, more moisture, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's like general hygiene, right? Like
Hmm.
your obviously your body is going to produce odors if you're heavily exercising and sweating and all of that, and it's just a simple shower. It's a simple,
Yeah.
it you don't need to go to any extreme lengths um, to take care of yourself. It is a
Right.
self-cleaning oven, as they say.
Right.
Is that one of your
Right.
myths? Is that
Yes.
Oh, I had a feeling.
Yes. So, douching is an important aspect of feminine hygiene, which, if you don't know what douching is, it's basically flushing the vagina with water or other fluids to clean it out.
Gosh, what other fluids would you use? Like, hopefully, like a saline or something, or I don't.
Is that true or false? I think you
Oh,
just kind of, I think you kind of,
I feel like I've answered it.
you answered that.
It
Yeah.
is false. It is fiction. You do not need to douche as part of normal hygiene.
Absolutely. But what's wild is it sounds like there's a large portion of vulva owners that don't know that because about 1 in 5, 20% douche.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. That's surprising. Well,
I
if anything,
know.
I feel like it could do harm. Like it's
It
actually
does
not
do harm.
it's not a good idea.
There is a lot of correlations with different harms, um, more likely to negatively impact chances of pregnancy, correlated with a higher risk of STI, a higher correlation with different infections because you're disrupting that pH balance, that acidic balance in the vagina. And so sometimes you can accidentally clean out the good bacteria, right? Like vaginas have a balance of good and bad bacteria, and you can clean out the good bacteria that leaves the harmful bacteria to overgrow and cause you to have some sort of infection. So at the end of the day, you're really not helping with hygiene, you're harming it.
Yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Nope. Yeah. But it was sad to see how high that percentage is in terms of how many people buy into this myth, that it is good for personal hygiene.
Yeah, well, and it's not something you hear about that often, or that like
No.
is advertised. Like I don't know, at least not the algorithms coming my way. Like it's not something I you see or hear about that often. So it's surprising that like 1 in 5, women are
I know.
douching, and um, knowing that that actually can be harmful. I mean, if you were to ask any gynecologist, I would think they would all say, "Don't do that. Um, it's not a good idea. Just
Right.
some gentle soap on the external parts, and you're good. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
If even
If even, exactly.
some soaps can be irritating. Just like literally water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being mindful of different like fragrances and different feminine products like tampons and pads and whatnot, because that can disrupt your balance too and everything.
Yeah.
Mm. You know
Something.
what I was wondering? I have no facts to back this, so I'm curious your thoughts about it. But I feel like there has been an increase in bidet usage. I don't know if you've seen that or heard about that. And I
Yeah.
wonder if that's related at all. If people are thinking, or vulva owners are thinking, well, like the bidet is used to cleanse the anus and the vulva is right there. Might as well like hit that while I'm there. I don't know if that's just part of the high number of 20%. I don't know. Just thought.
Wondering if you're using the bidet as a douche.
Yeah. I
I
don't know if
have
that sounds wild, but
no.
it was just a thought.
I mean, I've heard wilder, so I mean, it's not that wild. Of an idea, I think. Um, well, I would agree that I hear more
Mm,
about bidets. I don't know if that's like a pandemic situation. Everyone's
maybe.
home, and I feel like everyone's gone kind of like super into making their homes like their sanctuary, since we were all stuck at home forever. So I don't know if that
Forever. There's some lingering resentment there.
just forever and a day. And the so I definitely hear more about bidets. Have you ever tried a bidet? Curious.
No, I'll be honest, no.
Oh my goodness, I tried one once. It was at like an Airbnb. I was staying with friends, and that was the most ticklish sensation. I was like jumping off the seat, like like I was like I cannot handle how do people tolerate that? I don't know. I feel like it's
Which we're not shaming
unnecessary.
anyone
I am
who
shaming you.
enjoys the
If you enjoy the day, there is something
bidet.
wrong with you.
It's so funny. I mean, people rave about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's you know what? To each their own. If you like some water tickling your anus, go for it.
Go for it.
I don't think that would cause harm. I have not heard that could cause harm.
I haven't heard that either.
Don't use it as a douche, is what we would
Yes,
say.
that's the take-home message
The
here.
take-home message here is do not use your bidet as a douche.
Right. Okay. All right. Blue balls is a phenomena that describes pain to men when they experience prolonged sexual arousal without orgasm.
Fact.
Oh.
For a second, I was like, I got it wrong.
No, blue balls is actually there is still controversy over this, as with the G-spot, but it is suggested by urologists that blue balls is real. Of course, this is the trigger warning, right? Like, that is no reason to engage in a sexual activity if someone is using that to guilt. I have heard that in terms of, I really want to have sex with you because I'm having a lot of pain and blue balls and that kind of thing. It can never be used as a way to guilt you. Don't, there's lots of ways that you can reduce that kind of pain without engaging in sex. You could masturbate, you could use a warm compress, you could take a cold shower, those kinds of things. You can distract.
You can just wait it out. It's not
wait
going
it
to
out,
last
and
forever.
it will subside.
Yeah, it'll get better. You'll be fine. Any of those at-home remedies. But it's just a little bit of discomfort, and not a reason to give in to having sex if that's not something you want to do.
Right, exactly. And it happens because of the blood that rushes to the penis and to the testicles. It can create discomfort.
So the blood rushes there, it sits there, and that causes pain because the blood vessels are expanded and for a length of time, or?
I thought, maybe I'm remembering wrong. I thought blood rushes there and then the vessels shrink to keep the blood there.
Oh, that sounds more accurate. I mean, you're supposed to educate me on this, Victoria.
And the blood does go away, but even after it goes away, it can leave a heavier feeling, something to do with deoxygenation of the blood. It can leave a heavier feeling there that could feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. I wonder why they say blue balls. Like, is there any color actually associated with
I've heard 3 different suggestions for this.
Okay.
One is that there is actually a bluish kind of tint to your balls when this occurs. Another is blue meaning sad, because which is ridiculous. I know, meaning sad. And then the last is something to do again with the deoxygenation of the blood.
Okay.
Which makes it blue.
Interesting.
Because when your blood reaches like the surface and exposed to oxygen, it turns red. So.
Okay. Interesting.
So can the same thing happen for vulva owners?
If you're aroused without orgasm, feel pain
and discomfort.
I don't know.
Yeah. There is such a thing as blue vulva.
Blue vulva.
Yeah.
Wow. And what did you learn about that? Is that common? Is it rare?
Same exact thing as that. It's from blood rushing and not having that release, and it will subside with time. And
I mean, it makes sense. Why would it be drastically
super comfortable?
Different? Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Huh, you don't really hear it talked about.
No, which I feel like is kind of a theme with some of these topics if it comes to women's health. Yeah. It's either misinformation or it's complete lack of information.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to say about blue balls or blue vulva?
No, just that I am now going to be mindful of blue vulva syndrome. It's a
Mm,
thing.
okay. Women are capable of ejaculating.
True. Fact.
True. Tell me what you know.
Um, I know that this is another topic where there seems to be some conflicting or contradictory information out there. Um, there's sort of two theories. I believe that, again, it's that Skene's gland
Yeah.
that some women will ejaculate a fluid from. I've also heard that what some women confuse as female ejaculation is just some urine being excreted when the urethra is being stimulated during, sex. So I've heard both, and both
Mm-hmm.
are possible, it sounds like.
Yeah. I've heard that as well. I've heard of a lot of people leaning into female ejaculation. It's just urine, just peeing.
Mm.
But the studies that they've done, they found actually two different types of ejaculating from women.
Oh.
One is female ejaculate, which is just a very, very, very minute amount. That's typically like white in substance.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes through the urethra from the Skene's gland. When they tested it, it had the same kind of proteins that are found in the Skene's gland and the prostate. Um,
Mm.
and then they also found another type of fluid, which is a lot more like 3 ounces. And that's what in the media we've heard of as squirting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that also comes through the urethra and also has traces of the Skene's protein. But when they compared them, they had a different chemical balance, even from urine. So they compared the chemical
Oh,
balance of
wow.
urine, of the female ejaculate, and of squirting, and they were all different. But sometimes ejaculate or squirting can have like a smell of urine, and that's because it's coming through the urethra. So it can
Oh,
pick up traces of urine in there.
okay. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I thought so
Um,
too.
yeah. And okay, so one of my questions would be if a woman wants to
Mm.
ejaculate, squirt, so to speak, can she learn how to do this?
I've heard that you can learn, um, but I'm not aware of how. Something
Okay.
to do more research on for sure.
I could be wrong, but I feel like I remember reading in the Come As You Are book
Mm.
by Emily Oh,
I thought it was like some
oh
Nargowski.
goodness.
I'm butchering it. I don't
Uh,
know.
sorry, Emily, if you're listening. um, but she said in the book that, just like how there's a unique makeup to everyone, that some women, just like we talked about hymens last week, some women have a hymen, some don't. Some have, they're varying in size and thickness and all of that, that the ability to ejaculate or squirt as a woman is kind of just unique. Some women do it, some don't. I don't know if it's possible to learn how to do that. If your body is, it's sort of it's an automatic response. But I could be wrong. My understanding is that it could be that wouldn't be possible for just anybody.
Also, honestly, when it comes to like not the squirting but the female ejaculate, I can imagine that vulva owners do it and don't even know, right? Like a very very small amount
Mm.
and a whitish substance. Like you may just think that that's part of your lubrication, part of
Mm-hmm.
discharge, part of semen. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would imagine that there are some vulva owners that don't even know.
Is there a sensation associated with it when you did research that like they might have an awareness that they're doing it or?
What I had heard in doing research was mostly the sensation was around squirting. And I feel like that's because it's a higher liquid.
Okay.
Um, the women didn't describe a sensation per se. They mostly described their feelings
Mm,
after being able to squirt.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's an
fascinating
interesting.
though.
Yeah, that is an
Yeah.
interesting one.
Yeah.
Any viewers, squirters out there that want to
I think
share? Is there a
I think right
sensation?
now it's just me and Eddie.
We have three viewers. There's a third. Welcome,
Oh,
third.
okay. Okay. I was like, I don't think Eddie's gonna pop in here talking about his squirt experience. But if you are listening and you are a vulva owner, please feel free to chime in. Or if you are not a vulva owner but have experience with, um,
Witnessing one.
exactly,
Yeah.
feel free.
We should also mention we set up the suggestion box,
Yes,
and I think our intention is to either have topic suggestions put in there, or if you have a question maybe you would like answered
yeah,
in a future live stream, we'd love to hear it.
absolutely. I completely agree. Okay, this next one is twofold. So there's two basically statements in one statement. So feel
So it's
free
a
to
trap.
address
It's a trap.
feel free to address both.
Okay.
I'm highlighting that for you. Penis owners have a higher sex drive. A. So if they're experiencing erectile dysfunction with you, their partner, unfortunately, that just means that he's just not that into you.
That is a very loaded fact or fiction.
It is very loaded. So I guess let's break it down. The first myth or fact: men or penis owners have a higher sex drive.
That is fiction.
Say more about why you're saying it's fiction. I agree.
Well, it's because both all genders vary in their arousal types, their desire types.
Mm-hmm.
I think we think that men have higher libidos, have higher sex drive because we're socialized and that's normalized. It's part of our culture to believe that somehow we see that as a very masculine trait too.
Mm-hmm.
That they're on the prowl looking to sow their seed, and so you know it's a gendered idea, but it's simply not true that there are plenty of men that have um, what we would call, even just the terms low sex drive, high sex drive, low libido. There's problems even with those terms
Yeah.
because, and we'll probably dive into this in maybe a future live stream, that there's actually different arousal types, and they look like they are, one might be a higher sex drive and one's a lower sex drive. They're just different arousal types. So there's just problems all around in this statement, but there's plenty of women who are, would consider themselves to have a very high sex drive, and it's common that if they're in a heterosexual relationship, that the male partner might be considered to have a lower sex drive. It's all combinations are possible, and they're all normal, and much more common than we would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was hearing that there was a study done on heterosexual couples, and they were looking into desire, and they were equally likely to have low or high desire.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. I think I came across another fact that I thought was really interesting. And I think part of this myth may come from um, vulva owners' desire is likely to um, be lowered in years 1 to 4 in a relationship. And that has to be associated with vulva owners liking typically more variety in sexual experience.
Okay, you're gonna have to say that again. So,
So, so research has suggested that in a longer term relationship,
mm-hmm.
vulva owners' desire can start to dwindle in years 1 to 4. And what they chalked that up to is vulva owners needing more variety. And that doesn't mean that they need new partners. It's just that sometimes you can get in these long term relationships into some sort of stagnant pattern where you're always having sex at night in bed in the dark because you have busy lives, you have children, whatever, and things get in the way. And so you just come up with one successful way to do it, and then vulva owners are more likely to lose interest in that than penis owners of that same kind of repeated.
And you're saying this happens in years 1 to 4?
Yeah.
That seems quite early in a relationship for that to be a common experience, to kind of feel like, what happens after year 4?
It's a good question. This study had come up, from my knowledge, because they were looking into monogamy and whether or not, like, the myth of men struggle more with monogamy than vulva owners. Right? And they were finding that that's not necessarily the case, that penis owners struggle with monogamy. Vulva owners can also struggle with monogamy, but it's not because it's monogamous, it's because it can lack variety.
I mean, it makes sense, I think, although I feel like what seems to be a more common experience is that there's more heightened arousal. Well, the first 3 years, I could see the last year. The research I've heard is that those, like, can't stop thinking about you, can't keep my hands off of you, distorted mental state.
Distorted.
The altered mental state that you're in the early phase of relationship physiologically cannot last longer than 3 years, which 3 years sounds like a long time. So I guess, 1 to 2 year, first couple years of a relationship, usually there's a lot of satisfaction and contentment in your sexual relationship with a partner. And then after that, it does change and taper off. So that's why I was like 1 to 4 years, 1 to 4. But maybe...
I think that's so interesting, because I feel like there's so much mixed here, which is part of the problem, because I've also heard, right, that I hear where you're saying that there's more sexual satisfaction at the beginning, but I've also heard no, because so many couples struggle with communication, especially early on, because early on it's hard to be your authentic self, right? Like, you're infatuated, as you were talking about, you want them to like you, so it can be hard to give that feedback of, no, I don't love that, or I need that, because you want to hurt their feelings and that kind of thing.
Well, it's like, how are we defining good sex? Because you could probably be in that infatuated state and not be having great sex because you're not comfortable with each other or know each other's bodies well enough to feel like you're experiencing good sex. So it could be, I'm obsessed with this person in every other way, and it's possible. Yeah, I'm sure there's people that could empathize with any of these points.
I agree. And also, I think for us and viewers to keep in mind, when we talk about research, we do have to take that with a grain of salt sometimes and make sure it is repeatable. Because, they might have a small sample size that really isn't reflective of the larger population. There's different factors that could impact these studies as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Even statistics can be, misinterpreted too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was part A of the question.
Okay, wow, we took a long time on part A.
Drive, right? And then
we lost our third viewer in just that part A.
I saw that we lost them a while ago.
Well, yeah. There was like 3 for a while, then went to 2, and then back to 3, back to 2.
Too funny. So, if you're with a penis owner partner that's experiencing erectile dysfunction, it means that they're not into you.
No.
Absolutely not. But super common, right? It's so common for a partner of someone struggling with an erectile dysfunction to feel like it's personal to them.
Yeah. I mean, I see this as being a gendered issue too. We expect men to just be running around with raging boners all of the time and
so accurate.
Like pinning down their partners, practically begging for sex, and so that's not accurate. But I think when we subscribe to those beliefs and views, a woman is then left to think, well, what's wrong with me if my partner doesn't want me? And
Right.
aren't I supposed to be just constantly turning him on? And
Right.
so if your partner is struggling with, getting an erection, there's a lot of other possibilities there.
So
Likely a lot of
many.
other possibilities than, he's just not attracted to you.
And we'll at least at some point go into all of the different possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are lots of things, even as simple as anxiety, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in the
Performance
moment.
anxiety,
Right.
right? Like being worried that they're not going to live up to, an expectation, or that they might ejaculate too quickly. It
Right.
could be a problem with some people that struggle with pornography addiction, struggle with erectile dysfunction.
Mhm.
Um,
Different medications,
mm-hmm.
being overly exhausted.
Yep, it happens too.
Things.
To
Oh, yeah.
struggle to have an erection is normal and happens.
So normal.
I think
Yeah.
if it's a consistent experience, it's probably something to look into and maybe seek some, um, you know, opinion of your doctor and talk about what might be causing it. Even
Right.
seeing a sex therapist. Oh, I
Ooh.
lost my earpiece. Even talking to a sex therapist, could, if it's anxiety related, maybe help you
Right.
work on those issues.
All right. Are we ready for one more?
I'm ready.
This is a loaded one, I think.
Did we finish the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was men have higher sex drive, so if they're experiencing erectile dysfunction, it's because they're not into you.
Mm-hmm.
And we debunked both. A, they don't have a higher sex drive, and B, it has nothing to do with you personally.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Nailed it.
Okay. Last one. Size matters.
Oh, to who?
Exactly.
And
What do you think? We don't have to make this a true or false because it's so loaded, I think. What are your
yeah.
initial thoughts around size mattering?
My initial thought is it probably depends on the person and that there's a lot more variables to consider. Like size is, you know, um, first of all, it's not something that you can control. So there's really no
Mm-hmm.
point in focusing on that. Your genital size is your genital size, and it's just fine. It's just
Mm-hmm.
fine because if we're talking about, heterosexual partners, like we just talked earlier about how clitoral stimulation is where it's at.
Exactly.
That is how you are best going to please a female partner. So the size of your penis doesn't matter as much as, our culture and society would have us believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think that the reason why that's become a belief is because if we're limiting sexual contact to penetration, if we're ignoring the clitoris and we're only focused on, penile penetration, then yeah, size would be better, I would think, because it would affect, hitting more nerves, hitting more of
Mm.
that clitoris that might be stretching, the wishbone shape of it, and or, hitting the G spot. But that's like a fraction of all the possibilities that sex is and should be.
Absolutely.
So I think that maybe that became such a big belief, size matters, is probably because a lot of couples are limiting themselves.
Absolutely.
There's there's plenty of other, you know, I would even say, I mean, to kind of go back to, I'm jumping all over the place here. So it's 9:30 at night,
You're
jumping all over the.
excited about this one.
Well, I mean, to go back to what were we just talking about? Erectile dysfunction, maybe, struggling to have not an ejaculation, an erection. Like there's other body parts, like there's fingers, there's other ways to, like, you don't have to let that completely ruin a sexual experience if you're still like, if your head's in it, you know, but your penis isn't
Right.
cooperating. Like it's not a reason to like throw in the towel altogether. There's plenty of other ways to experience pleasure and stimulation, and it's very much the same for women. It's more so penetration. Penile penetration is not should not be the only focus.
I completely agree. I have a couple numbers
Oh,
that I
okay.
thought were interesting in terms of this. That about 55% of men are satisfied with their size. So
That's
only
true.
about
Oh,
half of men
thought
are
you were
satisfied with
quizzing
their
me again.
size.
Okay. Only about half are satisfied with their size.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Yeah. But 85 to 90% of women are satisfied with their partner's size.
Isn't that funny? Doesn't that tell you
Exactly.
something?
Exactly. And less than 30% of women thought that as size increases, satisfaction increases.
Yeah. Huh. Well, there's, as we've come to realize, plenty of misconceptions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for anyone that watches this. If you have any comments or
Anyone in the
topic
future?
or any topic ideas, please feel free to put it in our suggestion box. And we are happy to take them.
Nice job, Victoria. I like all the fact or fictions.
Mm.
They were very
And
interesting.
we'll see what you come up with for your topic for next week.
We shall see. All
Okay.
right.
We'll be here 8:30 Eastern Time next Wednesday.
I'll be here. See you then.